What up, TCK Potters? I'm your host, Scott Guasco. This is episode 199. 200 coming up next. 199 of the Candlestick Kids Fantasy Podcast. I'm joined once again by Lukas Kaser. Lucas, how you feeling, brother?
I'm ready, just like the last episode, to finally wrap it up. This is the last one where I have to reference non-rookies to talk about them. That will not be the case anymore. I'll just actually get to talk about them. So I'm excited.
Dig it, man. I'm with you, man. It's been a long sludge of rookie predictions, which of course most of those go out the window once the NFL draft actually happens. Then we get into redraft and everything changes for the veterans. A lot of people had dynasty leagues, such as us, which we'll be announcing here pretty soon, the results of that. We actually escaped pretty well. Our good friends at the Commish FFP, not so much. They did have a couple guys that they drafted pre-draft that maybe, took a hit because of a rookie coming in. So we'll see what happens there. As you heard on Tuesday, we covered the AFC side of the fantasy implications for the rookies coming in and the vets in which they now share a team with. We're going to do the same for the NFC side this podcast, and we're going to have a big episode for 200. Very excited about that. And if you haven't checked them out yet, on Monday of this week, Lucas and I finally dropped our official set of rankings, our first official set of rankings. Of course, you know that Lucas dropped the Fantasy Stock Exchange Rookie Draft Guide, which if you don't have a free copy of that, you're messing up and you should definitely go get one. But we also played around with some rookie pre-draft rookie rankings, which of course all those are obsolete at this point. But we have our first official rankings. Lucas focusing mostly on Dynasty. I'm focusing mostly on redraft, but we do each have a set per fantasy style. So make sure you go and cop those. All right, man, let's jump right into it. The AFC West, we'll start with the San Francisco 49ers. Let's just go right into it. Again, just to recap, we're not going to cover every draft pick for each team. We did that with Jonathan Rifkin, our good brother from the Pac-12 Network, who came on for the last 6 episodes. We're not going to cover every player again. We're just going to cover the fantasy implications on more of immediate. Now, I'm sure there's rookies we're not going to talk about now who will emerge that nobody sees out of nowhere. But as of right now, we're going to talk about those earlier guys who may have fantasy implications more suddenly. So let's get into the 49ers here. Brandon Ayuk, 25th pick overall, wide receiver from Arizona State. Again, just remind me because as a 49er fan, but also a Debo fan, I want to know for fantasy, does Brandon Ayuk coming into San Francisco hurt or help Debo Samuel?
It's tough because I think it helps everyone but himself. He's extremely yards after catch. He was number 2 last year in terms of the overall class of weapons, but he was number 2 behind Devin Duvernay he was 14 yards on 40 less catches. So he was well ahead of like the number 1 status in the squad. Yeah. So it's tough because I don't think he comes in and even contends for the number 1B target share with Kittle and Samuel, but I think he easily could. But I think this helps Kittle the most. I think this is the one where a better team provides better players, theory that we talked about last episode. So I think that it just helps Kittle, Jimmy G, the overall offense. I don't know if he's going to have much fantasy value because Debo does, but how high is his ceiling? It's more of a low wide receiver 2 kind of capped. But yeah, overall, I think this, in terms of dynasty, solidifies Kittle as the tight end 1. Redraft probably makes the conversation closer to me putting Kittle over Kelsey. But yeah, I think it's more of just a football move, like I said, than a fantasy move.
But I think it's going to be great for the 49ers. I think this is an awesome pick. I would have liked, as I mentioned, T. Higgins, but Brandon Ayuk is a beast, and I'm totally good with that. All right, let's move on to the Seattle Seahawks. Did not do much in the earlier rounds. They grabbed Colby Parkinson from Stanford, another tight end. They have 4 tight ends at this point. We'll see what happens there. I do want to talk about DJ Dallas, though. 4th-round running back they grabbed out of Miami, who is Carson's handcuff for now, but next year could just be that guy. We've talked a number of times on the podcast that we personally don't believe Rashad Penny is going to make it happen. Pete Carroll and the front office of Seattle really has just kind of leaked that Chris Carson should be healthy and ready to go by week 1, which is great for him. But on the flip side, unfortunately, Rashad Penny probably will not and could end up on the preseason PUP list. And if he's on the PUP list to start the season, then he'll be out at least 6 to 8 weeks, which obviously gives DJ Dallas more opportunity there. So let's start with Colby Parkinson really quickly, and just, I know tight ends aren't sexy, but we should cover them. They bring in Greg Olsen from Carolina, who's maybe got a year or two left in his career. Will Dissly has been super fun for about 6 weeks of fantasy football so far, over 2 years before he's been hurt and lost the season twice. My boy Jacob Hollister never gets enough love. I know that you aren't a big fan, but I think he's fucking phenomenal. But he's the third, fourth guy anyway. Now they bring in Colby Parkinson. What is going on here with the tight ends? Is this a run blocking move, or is this a legit actual secondary weapon here for Russell Wilson?
Well, he was a legit actual tight end in college. This is like the complete Seattle pick. Same with DJ Dallas, which we'll go into next. I guess it's like a draft him and put him on your taxi squad, wait for Olsen to retire next year. I mean, Disley tore his ACL last year after he was hurt the year before, so I don't think there's much left there. Hollister, like I said, is a J-back, a fullback that catches the ball, that just had to play that tight end spot because they had no tight ends. So I don't know. I mean, like, if your team has a dynasty or a roster spot of a tight end in a dynasty league and you're thin at tight end, sure, but I probably just stay away or don't even care about it for the most part. DJ Dallas comes in as basically competing for the backup with Travis Homer. I don't want to say he's better because he did not show it whatsoever in college. Miami also kind of was not very good last year, but I guess if they like him enough to take him here over guys like, Benjamin, even Mike Warren, any 5th through 7th round running back, really, I just didn't think he was that good, but obviously it means something that they took him here. We saw Carson's fumbling problems, how easy he could be benched for hurt Rashad Penny, Travis Homer, beast mode. Obviously Carson was hurt there, but I feel like they would have signed him probably anyways, just for depth. So yeah, just a dynasty stash. I don't even know if he's necessarily a taxi squad guy because he's going to probably get production right away if he is the running back too, with as bad as as gross as it is, elite upside for how not that great of a running. He's slow. He's like a 4.58, and he's not that big, so it's just not appealing. But you have to buy in due to the situation.
There's been a lot of incredible Hurricane running backs though, so I guess we'll give them. We'll give him a chance. I do have Chris Carson at 17. He was at 15 pre-draft. I just dropped him a couple spots with them bringing in DJ Dallas, and I have DJ Dallas right now at 45. So the back end of those RB4s. All right, let's move on to the Rams. They bring in Cam Akers, another obviously a high-profile rookie running back. I know we like him a lot. Let's talk about the landing spot, and then Van Jefferson as well from Florida. I am wondering if this is going to hurt my boy Josh Reynolds, who we've been a big fan of here on the podcast. So let's start first with Cam Akers, who's taking over Todd Gurley, obviously out of town, moves over to the ATL, takes over for Devonta Freeman there for the Falcons. Cam Akers, I think he has a legit chance to just be the running back with Darrell Henderson and Malcolm Brown just not emerging as that guy last year behind Todd Gurley. So how do you feel about Cam Akers here landing behind another terrible offensive line, unfortunately, but a should-be high-powered offense with the Rams?
Yeah, so the whole Darrell Henderson sort of aspect of it, they obviously drafted Henderson last year, and everyone was kind of shocked, like, why they would do that. And then it was Darrell Henderson season once Gurley left for about a month. Like I said, that gap between free agency and NFL draft, never buy in. And then they go draft Akers when this team has clear other needs. So obviously it's Akers' backfield to lose. I don't think it's any way around it. In terms of their offensive line, I don't think you'd believe this. They're the number 1 pass blocking offensive line last year. Isn't that crazy? And then they're like 30th in run blocking. So it's like just a mediocre blocking line, I guess. Sure. I don't know. It's really weird. But then you take that into account, and Gurley was the RB15 last year on 14 games played. So the people that are like kind of like Akers behind the bad offensive line, like shut it down. Like, I don't know. Gurley with one knee was RB14 last year. So like, I don't really know what's missing there. He's going to get a lot of touches, ran into the ground. Like I said, that's why I was debating him or Dobbins at my RB3 in terms of my dynasty rookie rankings, because Dobbins has the clear path to extreme upside, but Akers is going to get ran into the ground for 2 to 3 years. So it's kind of take it with what you will, whatever your team can afford in Dynasty. But I like Akers a lot. I think he will be run right away, 20 touches a game for 3 years if he stays healthy. So it sucks for him, but not really, because he's gonna earn his money one way or the other. But I like him a lot. And then Von Jefferson primarily plays in the slot, so this is really concerning for not really Reynolds, but for Cooper Kupp actually, who he's a free agent next year and they can cut him or trade him for virtually no dead cap and save a bunch of money. So I don't want to throw that out of the aspect of it. They're 32nd in cap space right now. Obviously they're actually negative right now, so they can't even pay Cooper Kupp. So they need to do something. So I think they might trade him, try to replenish maybe their picks here and there. Kind of like what we saw with Amari Cooper, sort of the Cowboys the Raiders sort of traded him away 1 year prior to his contract year, but similar situation for a first and I think a second or something. But we could definitely see that. I do like Von Jefferson as a dynasty stash, just because if Cooper gets traded, he's going to get the wide receiver 2B targets behind apparently the best ranked pass blocking offensive line, I guess.
Yeah, but the 31st running. I've got Cam Akers right now at 26, and Darrell Henderson, I think, made the farthest drop for me personally. I had him at 28 pre-draft. Now he's at 58. I've got him behind basically all the second tier running backs, backup running backs. I've got him as kind of my last one there, because again, there is Malcolm Brown who's going to get work, and I think Malcolm Brown's just as good. He's just a little bit older, so I'm worried about that. But I do like Cam Akers a lot, and Von Jefferson should be great. And we'll see what they do. I think Cooper Kupp's going to be awesome again this year while Von Jefferson gets used to this offense, but as you mentioned, could be making a move in the future. Let's move on to the Cardinals, and we'll wrap up the NFC West. Not much here. They grab Isaiah Simmons, of course, out of Clemson, and then Josh Jones, a tackle out of Houston for their first 2 picks to really focus on that defensive core, focus on the offensive line core, which is great. And then the only player for fantasy that we're really interested in is Eno Benjamin, running back, deep 7th round out of Arizona State. We had mentioned kind of the comparison between him and Chase Edmonds. We're thinking that, they both have an opportunity to kind of be the backup for Kenyon Drake. But this gives me even more love for Kenyon Drake, because we know that Kenyon Drake Cliff Kingsbury is a 1 running back guy. So as long as Kenyon Drake is healthy and effective, which he was incredible in his second half of the season for the Cardinals last year, going 808 over the last 8 games, he should be just fine. But Eno Benjamin, I think, does bring a little spark to this offense as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a dynasty stash. We touched on the whole contract with Kenyon Drake last week. The one thing fantasy related that we forgot to mention is they now have someone to cover the tight end in Isaiah Simmons. So we might have to shut up the whole chalk start of the
Cardinals
week.
are a free, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe the Will Disley won't score 2 touchdowns a week now or something like that.
Hollister might, though. Boom.
That's true.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've got Drake at 7 right now, and then I've got the other 2 guys pretty deep here. Eno Benjamin at 70, and Chase Edmonds at 61. So still think Chase Edmonds has the edge just because he was there last year in his 1-4 touchdown game. He played really well before he got hurt, and he looked great in that offense. And Benjamin's still obviously a rookie, so it might take a little bit longer to get him ahead. But that is the NFC West. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel here and leave a comment on your favorite and least favorite NFC rookie landing spots here. And make sure to subscribe and leave a rate and review for the podcast wherever you're listening. We much appreciate you getting the sounds out. Let's move on to the NFC North. The Green Bay Packers were busy with 9 picks, but I'm not sure I'm excited about any of those 9 picks. We let you go in on them last podcast, so maybe we'll save some of that venom here. But of course, they grabbed Jordan Love, quarterback out of Utah State, as their first pick. Plenty of receivers on the board, and they go with Jordan Love. Then in the second round, they go with A.J. Dillon. Plenty of receivers on the board, and they go with A.J. Dillon. And after that, they go with the tight end with plenty of receivers on the board. So Let's talk about Jordan Love. There's not much to talk about. We know the situation. If he's around long enough for Aaron Rodgers to either move on or retire, he'll get the opportunity, but that doesn't seem to happen anytime soon. You and I have had a text thread back and forth that we think Aaron Rodgers is going to leave next year. I do believe that. I've been mentioning the 49ers, maybe the Bears. There's a handful of teams that would love a 37-year-old Aaron Rodgers over whoever the hell they have right now, and then that would give Jordan Love the opportunity, but he's not going to play anytime soon. Let's move on to A.J. Dillon, who is the third capable running back who does have some pass-catching chops, who's huge, Derrick Henry-esque comparisons as far as the goal line work goes to go along with Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones. Now, of course, Jones had 19 touchdowns last year. So if he has those chopped in half with A.J. Dillon getting a chunk of those, that's going to obviously affect his fantasy statistics. And Matt LaFleur, former coach of the Titans, and Derrick Henry basically brings in this year's version of Derrick Henry. So what the hell is going on in the Green Bay backfield?
I'm just going to kind of give the same spiel I gave last time. If you did not listen to that, I did defend both sides of the Packers because I kind of like I said, I sit in the middle on everything. But with A.J. Dillon here, Jones and Williams are free agents next year. Like I said last time, they have given every reason to cut down Jones' snaps in the past. With Jamal Williams sticking around, I comped him to Royce Freeman because that's kind of like what he is. Like a Devontae Booker is kind of like what Jamal Williams is. But now they have a capable first and second down running back. Jones, like it seems like he is because he had 19 touchdowns. So everyone thinks he was like actually a really good running back last year. Like he was like a top in the league, but he really wasn't. He actually wasn't that good compared to like in terms of like actual running back status in the NFL. So Jones will be probably the third down sort of. Come on, I'm just going to say Kamara because it's kind of a similar scenario. But I think they might run a lot of two running back sets actually now. You have to remember Matt LaFleur, first draft as this coach, first draft as like the actual like making the decisions. And he came from the Titans with Derrick Henry, a year of DeMarco Murray, and then it was Deion Lewis after that. So he likes having two running backs, and I think that Jones, however, his volume will get knocked down. I think his efficiency will kind of not necessarily, it'll go down, but it'll more like even out to where you'll be able to still draft him and play him in fantasy. Dillon, I think, is more of a Jordan Howard with upside, or a Frank Gore with upside in terms of fantasy. It'll probably be like a flex spot here or there if you have multiple flex spots that you start. But I like them both, honestly, for fantasy because this offense is not bad. They did not get any worse. They added Devin Funchess, which, whatever. Like, everyone says he sucks because we haven't seen him play in 2 years. Like,
I'm excited to see it.
It'll be exciting. You still have Lazard. You still have MVS. You still have Allison. Equinemius St. Brown. You still have Sternberger, you had Josiah DeGuara. The defense got a little bit worse, but it wasn't that great anyways last year. So I think this team is going to stay consistent. Adding a running back that can just get you 4 to 5 yards of carry only makes the opportunities more because you're getting 2nd and 4, 2nd and 5, 3rd and 1. You're guaranteeing yourself a first down. But in terms of just overall fantasy, I think this locks in Devontae Adams as the wide receiver 2 overall. I didn't really buy into that right away, and then I've been kind of looking at it, and I read an article on Roto World kind of breaking down I probably should have wrote stuff down, breaking down when he came back from his injury, like the volume he had was it was greater than Michael Thomas's opportunities. So I think that I had him as the wide receiver 1 last year. I don't know if I might this year because they added Sanders to the Saints, so we'll see how that all plays out after I do my projections and everything, but yeah, I think he's locked into the 2, and you can get him for in the 2nd round of some redraft drafts right now.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm a huge Tay Adams fan. I drafted him in our TCK Pod League, 5th overall or whatever that was. I also drafted him as my first pick in my League of Record as well, which was maybe 7th or 10th overall in that league. Either way, he was my first round pick in my 2 main leagues last year. Obviously, he got hurt and it bit me in the ass, but he was on pace to just absolutely fucking smash, and I love his situation. He was my preseason number 1 over DeAndre Hopkins last year as well. And again, I think Michael Thomas is undoubtedly proven and probably going to be the number 1. But if anybody's going to take over that number 1 slot, it's going to be Devontae Adams for me as well. Just a quick mention on the running backs here. Aaron Jones for me is 16. RB16 in redraft right now. He was 11 pre-draft. They dropped him 5 spots after they brought in A.J. Dillon. I am worried about that goal line work. Quick question, I guess, if you haven't covered it per se. I've got Jamal Williams at 54 and A.J. Dillon at 57, so I'm not sure who that true RB2 is going to be. Obviously, they have 2 different skill sets. A.J. Dillon being massive, 6'1 plus. He's going to be that pounder, I'm sure. And then Jamal Williams is more of a pass-catching back. But who do you think is actually maybe the handcuff to own? If you have Aaron Jones, you're in the 10 to 15th round, and both those guys remain on the board. Who would you be looking for in a redraft? Obviously, Dynasty, it's A.J. Dillon, but in redraft, who do you be looking for this year?
I think the handcuff to Jones would be Jamal Williams. It's kind of a tough question because I don't think if Jones gets hurt, they're not going to throw the ball. I don't even know how many targets Aaron Jones had, but they're not going to throw the ball to A.J. Dillon. Aaron Jones had 69 targets, so 4.6 per game. They're not going to give A.J. Dillon 4.6 targets per game. It wouldn't be the most efficient for that offense. So I think Jamal Williams might be worth a sort of just a stash because I'm assuming his ADP come draft time is going to be like probably not even in the top 15 to 16 rounds that you normally draft. So I think A.J. Dillon's a really safe option, probably in like the 9th or 10th rounds. But I think if you're trying to go most upside, I still think Aaron Jones is the pick because it's all based off bias and mock drafts and stuff. I think Aaron Jones will probably be a 5th or 6th round pick, which we'll probably do something where we weigh out like the value of each pick compared to the rest of the draft. So I'm sure Aaron Jones will have the highest rating, you could say, due to his upside.
Absolutely. And I want to mention one more thing on Aaron Jones. We'll move on. Last year he had about 1,500 total yards rushing and receiving, and he had 19 touchdowns. Christian McCaffrey had over 2,000 total yards, 600 plus more, and also had 19 touchdowns. So again, the regression for Aaron Jones at running back number 2 last year on the season, the regression there makes me nervous. This is before A.J. Dillon. Now they bring in somebody who, if it's 3rd and 2, 2nd and 2, 1st and goal, they might bring in A.J. Dillon just to make sure to get those points. Also, he hasn't been doing it as much because Aaron Rodgers has just changed as a quarterback over the last 3 to 5 years, which has been sad and frustrating for fantasy owners. But Aaron Rodgers for years, and maybe it's because they didn't have a running game, but Aaron Rodgers for years threw more than any other running quarterback outside of Russell Wilson inside the red zone and certainly inside the 10, right? So he likes to just kind of have those quick hitter slants and whatnot, which, made a lot of Jordy Nelson's late career there. So that'll be interesting. All right, let's move on for the Packers. The Vikings had 17 total picks. They had a lot of picks on defense, a lot of offensive linemen, things like that. So really, I just want to talk about one player unless you have anyone else to cover, and that's Justin Jefferson. 22nd pick overall, wide receiver out of LSU. Of course, Diggs moves on to Buffalo. Adam Thielen's still around, but 31, probably a year or 2 left. I don't super hate Thielen in redraft, but I'm definitely fading him. Justin Jefferson, I don't know if he's going to be like Stephon Diggs this year, but he will be moving forward. How do you feel about his landing spot in this offense particularly and right now for Justin Jefferson?
Yeah, he comes in with 110 vacated targets, and I'm pretty sure that's all you need to use to evaluate him. He's a good receiver. He proved that combine last year, national champion, obviously draft capital. He's going to take Stephon Diggs' role, and I'm not a big Stephon Diggs guy anyway, so I think he's going to be better than Stephon Diggs in that offense. Thielen's older. He's regressing, so I think it's sort of wheels up, you could say, for him. He'll probably be my highest redraft ranked rookie receiver, just due to vacated production opportunity. The offense is good. The team's good, so I think he'll probably be my highest there. But it's kind of mixed reviews where people have him in terms of their rankings. I'm pretty sure he's my 2 right now, maybe my 3, but I see him all the way down at 6 or 7, which I totally understand. Both sides do it. But yeah, I think it's a safe bet. Redraft, rookie drafts, dynasty startups, either way you slice it.
Yeah, I have Justin Jefferson right now is 39. Thielen is 22. But as you mentioned, Justin Jefferson is my highest ranked redraft rookie receiver. He's at 39, which isn't sexy, but basically it's because all these guys are backups for now. But my rookie redraft rankings are Jefferson, Judy, Lamb, Ruggs, Reagor, Pittman, Mims, and Higgins for right now. I will say that if AJ Green holds out, gets traded, gets hurt again, whatever, Higgins is going to be in that top 5 for sure of that group. So Justin Jefferson, a great landing spot there. I totally agree. In Dynasty, I think he's an awesome grab. Let's move on to the Chicago Bears. Not much to mention here. Cole Kmet, they grabbed the top tight end off the board. For a lot of people, he was the consensus number 1. I know that there were a couple other people, Harrison Bryant, Troutman, some other people at the top there. But they go with Cole Kmet. They've wanted to have that tight end position with Matt Nagy in Chicago for 2 years, and they just couldn't have it. Trey Burton had an awesome year a couple years ago. We all expected a huge year last year, and he fucking just fell on his face, and he was hurt, and nothing happened there. They couldn't find a second person. So now they have Cole Kmet, which I think is a great landing spot at tight end for the Bears. And then your boy Darnell Mooney, wide receiver out of Tulane. So cover Kmet really quick, and then give us some Mooney love.
Yeah, Kmet's one of the 10 running or tight ends on the roster. Him and Graham will split. I mean, it's rookie tight end. Don't draft him in redraft. Stash him in Dynasty. If you have a tight end spot, I picked him up for a couple taxi squads in my rookie drafts just because the upside is clearly there with what they did with Trey Burton 2 years ago. But I'm not like super excited by any means. I wish they would have addressed the O line with that pick. Then I would have been feeling a lot better about this offense. Then they get Darnell Mooney. Obviously, I was really big on him when we broke it down with Riff with the receivers or deep sleepers. So I was really pumped he went here. I was like, redraft, he's actually going to have value. And then they went out and got Ted Ginn. You don't decide Ted Ginn at 35 years old to not use him. So Mooney is now strictly a taxi squad stash. But I think that he's good. He's a good football player. I think he'll be on the team. He'll make the roster as the 4. Maybe next year he takes that next step. But I was so high on him, and then I'm still high on him because he's still good. But it was like squashed, like no redraft value right away.
That happens, man. So that's why I like to have the dynamic with you and I of the dynasty outlook, where Mooney is potentially a free grab. He's a great hold. He's a great stash in 2 years. Maybe he's the number 2 behind Allen Robinson if he's still around, and that would be great with Anthony Miller's injury concerns. But in redraft, the way that I think about things a lot more often is like Darnell who, because
exactly. Yeah.
There's no chance. I mean, there's no chance. I'm even consider. First of all, I have a hard time considering Allen Robinson, who's amazing and a top 12 wide receiver. I probably won't be drafting him anywhere just because he's on the Bears, let alone anybody else if I'm not in a 36 team league or something ridiculous. So that's a different perspective. All right, let's move on to the Lions, and then we will get into the NFC South. So the Detroit Lions had 10 picks, tied with the Giants for the second most picks in the NFC, behind only the Vikings with those 17. DeAndre Swift, second round. We've been talking about carry on, right? I sent a DM to, or I tagged I sent a tweet to the fantasy footballers on Twitter just to be a dick. And I was basically just like, hey, have you guys claimed, hashtag Carry-Gon Johnson yet? And didn't get any reply. But Carry-On Johnson certainly hurt in this situation. I talked at length about these rookie running backs coming in, supplanting the veteran Marlon Mack, potentially Todd Gurley, eventually some of these other guys. And you may be getting value on these veterans because they're falling due to the rookies. So my question to you is, obviously we love DeAndre Swift for future and dynasty. He's a top pick for sure. Short term though, immediately, do you think Carry-On is going to come in if he's healthy and have a chance to continue to be that workhorse back with DeAndre Swift spelling him? Or do you think that the Lions are going to maybe just give Swift all the work he can handle and have Carry-On be the second-tier guy to lighten his load? We do know that last year everyone was excited about him coming into his second year, and Matt Patricia came out right away and said, look, we don't want Carry-On to be the 20-touch guy. Carry-On came out himself and said he didn't want to be a 20-touch guy, and he still hasn't had over 19 touches in a game in his career. So maybe it's Swift and then Carry-On versus Carry-On and then Swift. How do you feel about that?
I think in terms of like this, the way they're going to use him, I think it's going to be 50-50 right down the middle. I think they might actually use a lot of 2 running back sets, whether that's I don't know, whatever you'd call it, Stafford and shotgun, and they're right next to him, or there's one motioning out, or they're going to be creative with it. Ultimately, this helps both because it helps carry on not take a workload that he never really got, but like he won't have to. Now you could say he'll be forced into it. I think I'll probably actually be drafting carry on and redraft just because he's going to go so much lower.
Oh yeah,
Rookie bias and stuff, and I mean, if it's a real 50-50 split, you're just going to be deciding on whoever's getting the red zone touches, which I don't know who's going to be getting the red zone touches, so it might be maybe taking Swift in one, carry on in my other league, like just to kind of like diversify it a little bit. But I think it'll be more of a 2 running back split. I think this is a smart football move to. Everyone thinks that they had other needs. This team really didn't. They were just this high because Matthew Stafford got hurt. So they got Jeff Okudah, replaced Darius Slay. They added Desmond Trufant. They have 2 other corners that were good last year. The only spot they're lacking is D tackle. But I always say D tackle is a waste of a pick. The Broncos every year throwing some random 7th rounder guy that always gets paid the next year because when the defense funnels through the middle, the big D tackle is going to get tackles and look good. That's just how it works. So they don't have really any needs. You bring back Matt Stafford, hopefully. We'll see if he's healthy or not. With Kenny Galladay, Marvin Jones, Hawkinson, I think they might have added another tight end. Hunter Bryant, they added him. I think he'll make the team. So I think it'll be a high-powered offense, which, like I said, I think the Packers last year. Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones was strictly 50-50 split, but Jones got the red zone touches, which led to 19 touchdowns. That's why he was the running back too. And Jamal Williams was maybe a flex play at best.
I do want to mention too that there is a chance that Bo Scarborough is the goal line back for the Lions.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Much like LeGarrette Blount was for Matt Patricia and the Patriots for many years, and the Lions, of course. Quick mention on those rankings. I have DeAndre Swift right now at 25 in redraft, and I dropped Carry-On down to 37. Carry-On was 25 pre-draft, but I have dropped him 12 spots since DeAndre Swift has come to town. All right, let's move on to the NFC South. Not a lot of players in general in this entire division for us to cover. So, the Saints, Adam Troutman, the tight end out of Dayton, I think you and I both like him a lot, but he's a dynasty guy. He's not a redraft guy necessarily, unless you have a deeper roster. In my league of record that I've been in for 12, 15 years, I talk about it all the time on the podcast, we have 2 flex, we have 7 bench spots, and an IR spot. In a league like that, if I punt tight end and I get Jared Cook somehow randomly in let's say the 9th round because he's the best with the upside and the history and the yada yada and all the top guys are gone. If I end up with Jared Cook in the 9th, 10th round or something like that, I personally would grab Adam Troutman in the 15th, 16th round as a tight end handcuff, if you will, because a tight end in this system is huge for the Saints, and Jared Cook is probably going to be moving on sooner than later. In Dynasty, I love him because he's going to be a great, player eventually. But other than that, they brought in Tommy Stevens of Mississippi State, who's basically just the other Taysom Hill in case he gets hurt. We know that Taysom Hill now has tight end eligibility. So this offense, there's not much to talk about. The Saints are the Saints. They're going to be incredible. Do you want to mention anything about this offense or their draft or lack thereof? And then the Falcons, just to double up, didn't draft any skill positions at all. So in just one fell swoop, I guess, go ahead and tackle the Saints and the Falcons.
Yeah, Troutman's just a long game, probably 2 years. Say they get rid of Cook next year, Drew Brees leaves, so he has a year of behind Cook, and then say he's the starter next year, then he has a year with a new quarterback, so it's more of a 2-year sort of, that's the ultimate taxi squad piece. I think he has a lot of upside. He's very athletic, huge, very productive at Dayton. So hopefully him and Jameis Winston in 2 years can start their 10-year stretch of greatness for the Saints. The Falcons, I don't even know what they were. I do know what they were doing, but Terrell was not it at 16. Go CD Lamb as much as you don't need it. Go CD Lamb. It's going to be a tough division, and I would not put it out of the picture for the Falcons to get 5 wins max or 12 wins max. So it's a very big range of outcomes.
Last year, we do our bold predictions. Daniel, who OG listeners know, Daniel's my, original BFF from Little League and whatnot. We started the podcast years ago with he and Curly, and Daniel and I do bold predictions and crazy calls preseason every year, and then we recap them again after the Super Bowl. last year, one of my bold predictions or crazy call, I can't remember, but one of them was that the Falcons would either be the best record in the NFC straight up, or they would be the worst record in the NFC. And they were kind of in between because they accidentally squeezed in a couple wins at the end of the season last year. But what they were trying to do in the draft was just get anybody that's going to stay healthy on defense. I mean, cornerback, defensive tackle, linebacker, safety, and then they drafted a kicker as well. So their offense is ready to go. They bring in Todd Gurley. I'm sure listeners have heard by now, but if you haven't, they do have the capability on offense to literally start a former first rounder at every single position on offense. So that's quarterback, wide receivers, running backs, and their entire offensive line and tight end. They have the ability to start all former first rounders if they so choose, which is pretty incredible. On defense, they've been great and talented. They just can't stay healthy, so they obviously hit that. So for fantasy, not much to talk about with the Saints or the Falcons. Honestly, not much to talk about the Buccaneers outside of Keyshawn Vaughn, who we will cover here in just a second. And then the Panthers literally did not draft any offensive players, so they went 8 for 8 on defense. So this whole NFC South, for what we're doing here, there's about 2 names to cover. That's Adam Troutman and Keyshawn Vaughn. So let's jump ahead to the Buccaneers, and then we'll wrap up the NFC South. Keyshawn Vaughn goes to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is a great landing spot in general. Of course, Tom Brady and now Gronk and all the other weapons here. Bruce Arians, who wants that David Johnson back, who didn't really get out of Ronald Jones last year. They do have Dare as well still. Peyton Barber moves on to Washington. This is a great landing spot. I know that you're stoked on Keyshawn Vaughn too. How are we feeling about him? I'm going to cover him in redraft here in just a second, but in Dynasty, how do you feel about him with Ronald Jones still pretty young himself?
Yeah, he comes in with 154 vacated rushing attempts and 24 vacated targets. To start, he will be used as the pass-catching back. I know we touched on it. He was really good at everything and not great at anything type of back coming out of college. Played for Vanderbilt. They weren't very good, but he was very productive. The one thing with Ronald Jones is that Bruce Arians did not draft him, so I think that they'll be used as a 1-2 punch, but once Keyshawn Vaughn sort of flips it on maybe or hits that one big game, I think Jones will be basically washed. He won't do anything. I think he's a free agent next year if I remember right. Dare Ogunbowale, or however you say his last name.
Ogunbowale.
Yeah, they can cut him for less than, they can save like a $800K if they cut him before June 1st. I think they will. So there'll be more vacated targets because he actually had quite a bit of targets last year. So yeah, Vaughn is Dynasty, like RB. He's like after the tier 1. I think I have him above Swift now. So like my 5, but he just doesn't have a ton of upside because he's like the 5th option on this offense at best, 4th at best, behind Gronk, Evans, and Godwin. So we'll see how that plays out. But I mean, I think he's gonna have good value in redraft and Dynasty. And he's kind of older though. I think he's 24 coming in, so maybe like just a 3-year gap running back.
I've got Keyshawn Vaughn in redraft at 27 right now. He's kind of the back of the potential starters because, again, we just don't know if he's going to be the starter or, a 1B option with Rojo. But I do like him a lot with Tom Brady. He's going to want those dump downs. Tom Brady needs a run game. He's just not a gunslinger like he used to be. So he's going to have that ability. And I'm sure Bruce Arians is going to use him as much as he can, handpicked, and he likes him a lot. So I like Keyshawn Vaughn quite a bit at 27. I dropped Rojo was actually at 27 pre-draft, but I have moved him down to 41 now with Keyshawn Vaughn coming in. All right, last division. We've got 4 more teams to cover: Eagles, Cowboys, Giants, and Redskins, and then we will get out of here for the rookie fantasy breakdowns. If you're still with us, please make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, leave a comment on your best and worst landing spot for the NFC rookies, and make sure to follow us on Instagram at fantasyfootball_TCKpod and on Twitter at TCK_pod. And all of our rankings have just been drafted up for the first time, official rankings, redraft, and dynasty rankings on TCKpod.com. All right, let's go into NFC East with the Eagles. Jalen Reagor, 21 overall. Jalen Hurts in the second round. Question mark with Jalen Hurts, of course. We'll get into him maybe with some dual threat abilities. But Jalen Reagor, I mean, they needed to go wide receiver. There was other wide receivers on the board available, but they took Reagor out of TCU. How do you feel about that particular pick for them when, frankly, they had nearly every other receiver available? And how do you feel about the fit there? And then they do have D-Jacks. They bring in Marquise Goodwin from the 49ers. They're going 100% speed, and then they're 2 tight ends over the middle. The Eagles have a plan for sure. I'm wondering if they're going to be able to execute it, but let's start with Jalen Reagor.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, everyone wanted Justin Jefferson to go here because who knows what reason? I don't know, because they don't really have a prototype of receiver. So they went all speed, like you said. All three guys they drafted are speed guys. They got traded for Marquise Goodwin, speed guy. Deshaun Jackson's coming back, so I think it's going to work because, I mean, Goddard and Ertz are probably just as good at over the middle receivers as most of the receivers in the league. Probably the only one I would probably argue would be Tyler Boyd, maybe, or maybe like a Chris Godwin type receiver, but they're still capable enough of doing that. Reagor's going to come with a lot of vacated production, a lot of opportunity. His athleticism is by far and away the best in this class. Production was lower just because TCU is not that good, but I think it'll be. He has the widest range of outcomes because if he doesn't hit, they have plenty of other receivers that I think could easily hit. So we'll see. He's my wide receiver 2. I actually just checked. I have Jefferson at 3. He's my wide receiver 1, sorry, due to vacated production as of now. I have him, CD, Justin Jefferson, and Judy as my top 4. Vacated production. The team is good. Good quarterback. So all the things are building up there, but obviously if it's not working out, like it makes sense why it wouldn't. So we'll see. But I really like Jefferson or Reagor a lot coming into 2019 or 2020.
We haven't talked at all about Alshon Jeffrey, who is just kind of a thorn in everybody's side with injuries and whatever. He's still Alshon Jeffrey enough to be a possession guy. He has no wheels anymore, but they have enough speed elsewhere. So he's going to be that possession guy, first down guy. Are you in redraft? I have Alshon at 48 and I have Reagor at 51. I generally don't like to rank teammates of the same position close like that. Godwin and Evans are an exception, of course, but I just don't like the stack. You know what I mean? When you see rankings, like I was going through my rankings and then I was double checking on some other people and just see where my rankings stack up because I'm curious. And I saw on one site that Jordan Howard and Matt Breida were back to back. Now they're like 36 and 37 at running back, but they're back to back. And to me, that just doesn't make sense, right? So my question is to you, coming in right away, do you think Alshon is the number 1, quote unquote, or do you think they would maybe have Jalen Reagor as that number 1 as the burner and then have Alshon essentially, just that complimentary?
Yeah. If Jeffrey's healthy, it's Jeffrey's wide receiver 1 role to lose. They can't get rid of him just due to they front load. Like I said, they front load every single contract, which I don't want to say it doesn't work because it definitely does. They've had a good franchise the last couple of years, so it's not like it's like not working. But obviously, when it comes to now, like injuries ruin that because you need to get rid of him, you need to move on, but you can't. But I think if he's healthy, it's definitely his room to lose. But Reagor's not far behind him if that's the case. But I think that, like, overall, this team is actually good. Like, I was looking at, like, Twitter, and people were like, the Eagles suck. They didn't get better because everyone thinks the Cowboys adding 1 player makes them Super Bowl champions. But the Eagles literally made the same improvements and added Darius Slay and the best defensive tackle in the league last year. So they have a good team. I think they're going to be a sneaky Super Bowl contender. People said this last year, but now they actually have a depth of weapons. They have Miles Sanders in year 2. Now their backup quarterback's probably one of the best in the league. So I think it's exciting, and I think they could definitely hit kind of like sort of what people wanted the Browns to be last year with all these weapons. So we'll see. But I think Jeffrey, if it comes down to it, I'll probably pass on Reagor and grab Jeffrey like round, I'll probably be like round 9 or 10 because we see wide receiver 1 production every game he plays. He just gets injured quite a bit.
Right. I agree with you. Jeffrey's frustrating. I'm not going to draft him anywhere unless he falls in our dynasty league we just had, obviously in a dynasty league, but he was in like the 18th round or something stupid. So yeah, why not? But I'm with you there. I'll take the long game approach. All right, let's talk about Jalen Hurts really quick. There's not a lot to cover. Obviously, if Carson Wentz is healthy and blah blah blah, but there's no. Just like the Jordan Love conversation with Aaron Rodgers, there's no secret that the Eagles and everybody else is worried about Carson Wentz's health. Period. He can't finish the season. You mentioned last time we did this, the Super Bowl that they accidentally won over the Patriots. It was fucking Nick Foles, and Carson Wentz was nowhere to be seen in the playoffs. He hurt his hand in the wild card game last year as well and fell short. So I don't dislike Carson Wentz as a player. I think he's great. I root for him. He's a North Dakota State guy. I've got some ties in North Dakota, so I throw some love out there. But like, I'm just not confident he's going to be the dude. And I've been kind of throwing shade for the 3 years of this podcast. And every time I make a post, just stating the facts and stating the fact that he's ranked as a top 6 quarterback every year. He's drafted as a top 8 to 10 quarterback every year. But frankly, he has averaged as a 15 to 16 quarterback every year of his career, right? So I think he's seriously overvalued with huge risk. So I guess when I make those posts, I get a lot of lashback on that. Do you think Jalen Hurts is strictly a backup and potentially the next Nick Foles position there if Carson Wentz goes down? Or do you believe this talk coming out of Philadelphia that they might dual utilize him? He could potentially definitely be the backup, obviously, but kind of a, not Taysom Hill per se, but like run some wildcat shit. Maybe be a receiver on occasion, maybe be a straight up running back if they need it.
Yeah, I think it'll be a mixture of Taysom Hill and what we saw Lamar Jackson his rookie year. Whatever you want to call that, a hybrid, a backup quarterback with playing time. I don't know.
Different skill set.
And yeah, it's completely smart. Like Frank Reich comes from this Eagles. I don't want to say. I always forget the coach's name. Whatever the coach's name is, I always forget the Eagles coach's name. But he comes from that coaching group, and it's
Doug Peterson.
Yeah. So they come from the same tree when they won the Super Bowl, and I think it reflects on how they build their franchise. It's perfect. Like, okay, if you're listening still, like, who would you have wanted the Eagles to draft there? A random cornerback that would have been the 4th on their depth chart, or a difference maker in Jalen Hurts that if or when Carson Wentz gets hurt, he comes in and you don't miss a single beat, and he adds a rushing element. So I think that it's just going to knock down some of Wentz snaps. Hurts is a fantastic handcuff. He's going on round 3 in Superflex rookie drafts, which is insane because like people are drafting Jordan Love in like the middle of the second. I'm like thinking, unless the Packers take a $20 million cap hit, like Jalen Hurts is starting sooner than Jordan Love is. So it's definitely a good stash to have there. But yeah, if Wentz gets hurt, he's fantastic in fantasy and dynasty and redraft. But I think it just overall boosts the offense. I mean, like people always like, how do you game plan for the Saints? You don't know where Taysom Hill is going to be lined up. You don't know where Michael Thomas is going to be lined up. Now Sanders, 2 running backs. Now you add in Miles Sanders, probably another running back most likely. A ton of receivers, 2 tight ends. Now Jalen Hurts. So I think it just boosts the whole team up. I'm still not drafting Carson Wentz. I never will in fantasy. I can never find myself doing it because I don't know why, to be honest. It's just like he comes up there and it's like Carson Wentz, Baker Mayfield, Jared Goff, and you're just like, yeah, I'll wait till 2 rounds or something. So it's just like I probably still won't draft him, but I think it just helps the team in general.
And in that case, I'm taking Baker and or Jared Goff over Wentz every time because I'll take the still question mark of the upside, but the injury concerns aren't there as of right now. And you and I talk a lot about not trying to overemphasize the injury shit. Like players get hurt, and then I always think about like certain situations like Emmanuel Sanders, who's 30 years old, tore his fucking Achilles. Like regular human beings like you and I, if we tear our Achilles, dude, we're out for like 5 years. Like we're not doing anything athletic for a very long time. And this dude came back in like 8 months and was borderline a Pro Bowl or on a Super Bowl team. So these athletes are able to do it. But the problem is when somebody like Carson Wentz, his entire career has been hurt every single season, it's a problem, and it's going to continue. All right, that's a lot of the Eagles. Let's get into the Cowboys, Giants, and Redskins, and we'll get out of here. Just a couple more names to cover. Cowboys, right up at the top here, 17th overall, CeeDee Lamb. Probably, I would say outside of the 2 quarterbacks we just mentioned, Jordan Love and Jalen Hurts, this is probably the biggest eyebrow raiser of the entire draft, with CeeDee Lamb going to the Cowboys. Obviously, they have Amari Cooper. Obviously, they have Michael Gallup. This is a huge topic of conversation. I'm going to let you cover this as a draft pick in CeeDee Lamb specifically, and then I'm going to compare quickly Michael Gallup and Amari Cooper's last year statistics, because I think what people are not realizing is Amari Cooper is the alpha one-ish, but he may not even be on the team next year. Michael Gallup was arguably better last year in certain categories. So you take CeeDee Lamb and I'll take the other two.
Yeah, so this is one of those picks where it makes sense, but are the Cowboys really basically what this pick meant was they drafted a non-needed position. They are confident in their rotational pieces of a bunch of cornerback 2.5s that play zone the whole. They don't have any corners. They had to sign Alden Smith from retirement for 3 years because they don't have any edge rushers.
I loved Alden Smith, dude.
So it's whatever. Like, take CeeDee Lamb, move on. They had a good draft the rest of the draft, but okay, every team has, like, this happens every year. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, like they had this guy in the 4th round because I really liked him. But everyone's good at football. Not everyone pans out. In the terms of dynasty, so Gallup's a free agent in 2 years. Cooper's kind of a free agent in 2 years because they front-loaded all his guaranteed money into the first 2 years, which I think was smart. But like I said in the last podcast, that basically shows that you're not confident in the $100 million contract you just threw out. So, like, it's just another concern. They go out and draft Gallup, and then they just replace him in 2 years. So it's just like a big jumble of what the hell is going to happen here. The vacated production from Cobb and Tavon Austin, just in the receiver room, is a little over 1,000 yards. So I think Lamb will get that. He's going to be fine in terms of dynasty. I have him as my wide receiver 2. Redraft, I'm sure he'll be okay, but not at his ADP because he's going to be super inflated. I'll take Gallup a round or 2 later, most likely, or even at the same ADP. But it's just like, I don't know. I say this with the Browns. Like, I'll see it when I believe it, because every year they're like, oh my gosh, this is all we need. And then 8-8, 7-9, 9-7. They lose week 16 to the Eagles for the division championship. And then they're like, oh, but our insert random excuse, like Dak was hurt last year. Well, it's your fault for not having a competent backup. Now they have Andy Dalton. They still don't have Dak signed for next year. So it's just a big. Like I said, it starts in the front office, or the whatever you want to call it, the GM room, in terms of even in fantasy value. That's why I look at that like that. But I think that don't be afraid to draft Lamb because the path to upside is there. I think the only thing I would say would be don't draft Amari Cooper because, one, injury concern. Don't draft him anyways. But now he has 2 receivers that might be better than him for this offense. Great.
And I have Amari Cooper right now in redraft. This is, of course, PPR. We always do PPR full. I have Amari Cooper at 17. He was my number 8 receiver pre-draft. Number 8 receiver pre-draft. Yeah. He's number 17 now. Michael Gallup, who I absolutely love, is 33. I had him at 29 anyway, but he's at 33 now. And then CeeDee Lamb creeps in at 42. So I've got 3 of these Cowboy receivers in the top 40 or top 45 picks, but that's pretty insane. That I mean, I just dropped him 8 positions here. I was going to do a big comparison. I'll just mention a few different statistics, but I just realized that I want us to earmark this really quick while I'm thinking about it. I want to do a podcast on teammates, right? We've heard kind of the friendship strategy, like drafting Godwin and Evans somehow, or Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley on the same team, or Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup or CeeDee Lamb on the same team, Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. You draft teammates on purpose because the value's there and the production's there. Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas, whatever. I want to do another one, which is kind of just comparing guys like this. So comparing last year's, like, Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, like what actually happened with these players and why we think that. So Michael Gallup played 2 less games last year, 14 to 16 to Amari Cooper. Michael Gallup had only 82 less yards overall. He actually had 6 more yards per game, 6 more receiving yards per game. He had 7 less targets and missed 2 games, so he would have surpassed him there. I'm not going to talk about touchdowns, 8 to 6, because those are unreliable there. But he also had an extra target per game as well. And then this is kind of an important one. So target market share on the team, Michael Gallup had 22% target market share, and Amari Cooper had 21. So it's a comparable number. However, if you're thinking of Amari Cooper as the alpha number 1, that just on paper, statistically, wasn't the case. They were very even, if nothing else. Amari Cooper did outpace him in air yards overall, but again, Michael Gallup missed 2 games. And the last one I'll bring up here is air yards per game, 106 from Michael Gallup and 10 less for Amari Cooper at 96. So we know that Amari Cooper can have humongous games, but he's also kind of unpredictable as well. So personally, I like Michael Gallup and CeeDee Lamb moving forward. If I were to pick 2 of these 3 for a redraft and or a dynasty league, I think I would maybe punt Amari Cooper, which is crazy to say, and I'm going to have Amari Cooper ranked higher just because, but I'm getting more and more comfortable, with Michael Gallup, who I think everybody's fucking terrified of right now, and CeeDee Lamb, especially in Dynasty. So we'll cover that when we get into our Dynasty League, because we did get Michael Gallup pre-draft, which felt like a steal in the 5th round or 6th round, wherever we got him. But then CeeDee Lamb gets drafted, and we're like, oh, fuck. There goes our wide receiver too. But now I'm not so scared of it personally. All right, let's jump into the tight end. The Giants have nobody to cover, really. They had really no skill positions at all. They grabbed Andrew Thomas, 4th overall from Georgia, the tackle. They're pretty, I don't know about stacked, but they're full on offense. They'll be just fine. Your usual suspects will be all right. We definitely need to spend some time, not on this podcast, but we need to break down the wide receiver core for the Giants. I think a lot of them have potential. A lot of them have redraft potential. I think Darius Slayton is maybe the only dynasty guy that I'm targeting personally. But we should break down their weapons there outside of Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones. So let's jump to the Redskins, and then we will get out of here. Chase Young goes 2nd overall, defensive end, no real surprise there. I know that you thought maybe they should have gone cornerback there with their secondary issues, but nonetheless, they go with Antonio Gibson out of Memphis, the running back, and then Gandy Golden, the wide receiver out of Liberty. So let's cover AG and AGG to get out of here for the Redskins, and we will wrap up the NFC fantasy implications.
Yeah, so Gandy Golden, he's an interesting prospect, and I think this might have been like not the worst landing spot, but not a good landing spot. The wide receiver core seems like everyone was like, oh my gosh, like he's going to be the number 2 right away. But Steven Sims played really good at the end of the year, and Harmon played like a lot of snaps, like wide receiver 2 snaps. Like I think everyone thinks that like you have to be fantasy relevant to be a good receiver. Like, why does Willie Snead keep getting paid? Because he's a really good NFL receiver. So is Kelvin Harmon, I think. Steven Sims will play that slot. Then you add in Trey Quinn, who plays okay. So Gandy Golden's more just a long shot dynasty throw. If he really has the potential everyone thinks he does, yeah, sure, he might be the number 2, but I'm not really too bought into that, or I don't really care too much to even think about Gandy Golden in terms of dynasty. Gibson's interesting. Obviously, the running back receiver hybrid. Everyone thinks he's a running back because one person said it on Twitter after the combine. If he was really a running back, he would have had more than 33 carries last year. No matter how many running backs are on SMU, it's SMU. Like they're ranked top 25, but like come on, it's SMU. He would have had more than 33 carries if he's truly a running back. So he's going to be more of a what Lynn Bowden is, Taysom Hill-ish, but way more athletic. So he'll be interesting. It's a fun dynasty stash. Probably not much in redraft. I would say if Geis is healthy, he's the 3 behind AP and Geis. But even like Barber's going to get some work. McKissick, they signed him for a reason. He's productive when he's used. So it's more of a hope Gibson plays the slot and just gets like the 5 manufactured touches and a couple extra outside of that. But it's more just toss him on your dynasty bench and hopefully he turns into Deebo Samuel, you could say.
Right. I think that's a great call on both of them. It's fun to get excited, and we saw what Terry McLaurin was able to do as a rookie in this offense last year. But Dwayne Haskins again we're just not sure exactly how he's going to pan out, and they do have a ton of running backs. So I think that's a good breakdown there of the Redskins. I have nothing else to add, my man. Well done. That wraps up the NFC East and the NFC entirely. Again, if you have not yet checked out our first official rankings of the season, redraft and dynasty, please go to TCK Pod to check those out. We have many articles available as well, and we will be updating our rankings, as we go along here in the summer. We also have not officially dropped it. We're going to soon. The 200th episode is coming up next, which is fucking unbelievable, bro. I'm pretty pumped on that.
Awesome.
But after that, we are going to be, maybe in addition to, we'll be mentioning some new developments here on the podcast, some other ways to get in touch with us, some ways to support the program. If you are into that, we would much appreciate it. But mainly our draft guide that we're building for you coming up this summer. And hopefully by now you have a glimpse of what Lucas and myself and our team are capable of with the rookie draft guide, which dropped, which I'm going to give Lucas one more opportunity to rep here in just a second, but we'll be getting into more of the TCK Pod draft guide information coming up as we finalize that. Before we get out of here, man, please let everybody know one more time what they're missing out on if they don't have it yet with your Fantasy Stock Exchange rookie draft guide.
Yep, fscdraftguide.com. It's a rookie draft guide, but it's just a rookie sort of information website. Dynasty drafts, rookie startup drafts, redraft, or if you just want to learn about some rookies, go there, completely free, lots of stuff on there. We'll be adding some stuff to it in terms of rookie content, but then it'll be redraft sort of dynasty guide, similar to the way that was set up for the summer.
Awesome. Yep. Great content on there, rankings and film watching and everything else. So shouts out to the entire Fantasy Stock Exchange. Big ups to our friends at the Commish FFP who are a big part of that with their player cards and whatnot and the graphics and stuff. So well done, Lucas, to you. That was a fantastic program. And again, it's free, $0. Make sure you go check it out. FantasyStockExchange.com. So make sure you go check out that. For us, we will be dropping more information coming up. Again, the 200th episode coming up next. Very excited about that. We got some special things planned for you, and we'll get into it. Make sure you're subscribing to the YouTube. Drop a comment on your least favorite and most favorite NFC landing spot for these rookies. And let us know if you're concerned about any of these veterans as well, or who you think maybe gains some value to in redraft and dynasty formats. Make sure to leave a rate and review on the podcast. Follow us on Instagram at fantasyfootball_TCKpod, on Twitter at TCK_pod, and of course on the website at tckpod.com.